3 months passed after the Battle of the Hydra Nebula. The galaxy was different now. The Galactic Defense Summit had become the Galactic Defense Alliance, a permanent organization dedicated to protecting all species from the Voidborn threat. And at the heart of that alliance were the humans who everyone had once mocked. Admiral Tae-sung stood in his new office on the orbital station above Velthar Prime. He wore a different uniform now, with insignia that marked him as commander of Joint Fleet Operations. It felt strange to be in charge of so many ships from so many different worlds, but the allied species had voted unanimously. They wanted the human admiral who had taught them how to win. Captain Hana commanded the Indomitable now. The carrier had been completely rebuilt over the past 3 months, repaired with a combination of human engineering and alien technology. It was no longer just a human ship. It was something new, a hybrid that combined the best of multiple civilizations. The carrier looked different now. The thick armor plating remained, but underneath were Luminari energy shields. The kinetic weapons were still there, but complemented by Arathian plasma batteries. The fighter bays had been expanded using Synthian space-folding technology. It was still the Indomitable, still recognizably human, but enhanced and improved. Commander Bora ran the first interspecies fighter academy on the rebuilt carrier. She trained pilots from 19 different civilizations in the human way of combat, not just tactics but philosophy, teaching them to trust their instincts, to think creatively, to never give up even when the situation seemed hopeless. Fighting like a human isn't about being human, she told her mixed class of recruits. It's about refusing to accept defeat. It's about looking at an impossible situation and finding a way through anyway. Engineer Jiwoo led the new cross-species engineering corps. His teams included humans, Synthians, Arathians, and others, all working together to design better systems. They combined human redundancy with alien efficiency, creating ships that were both powerful and resilient. Dr. Minseo became Chief Medical Officer for the entire alliance. She had earned that position by treating thousands of wounded during the battle, making no distinction between species. When asked about her promotion, she simply said, "Pain is universal. Compassion should be too." The memorial service was held on the anniversary of the battle. Thousands gathered, both in person and via hologram. Names were read aloud. Human names, alien names, all equal in sacrifice. Captain Jae-won attended the ceremony, recovered from his injuries when his escape pod had been rescued. He stood with his surviving crew, remembering the whisper and the mission that had turned the tide. When asked to speak, he said only, "We did what needed doing. No more, no less, but peace was temporary." In a secure briefing room, Professor Kyung-soo presented new findings to the Alliance leadership. His wild gray hair seemed even more disheveled than usual, a sign he had been working too hard. "The Voidborn are regrouping," he announced, pulling up star charts, "but they're doing something we didn't expect. They're not just rebuilding their fleet, they're evolving their tactics." "Explain," Tae-sung requested. "The Voidborn AI learned from their defeat. They learned that unpredictability wins battles. So they're incorporating random elements into their own combat algorithms. They're teaching themselves to be unpredictable." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. "That's terrifying," Ambassador Dae-hyun said quietly. "Machines that can think creatively." "Not creatively," Kyung-soo corrected. "Randomly. True creativity requires intuition, emotion, experience. But random behavior can mimic unpredictability well enough to be dangerous." Agent Yan Wu added her own intelligence report. "We've detected unusual activity in the outer rim. The Voidborn are building something massive. Our long-range scouts can't get close enough to identify it, but the energy signatures are unlike anything we've seen before." "How long until they're ready to attack again?" Fleetmaster Colveris asked. "Unknown, but we should assume they're preparing for a major offensive, and based on their previous pattern, they'll target what they see as the greatest threat." Everyone in the room understood what that meant. The Voidborn would come for Earth. The warning came 2 weeks later. Long-range sensors detected a massive Voidborn fleet entering the outer colonies. They were moving toward human space, directly toward Earth itself. It wasn't just an attack, it was a statement. Destroy humanity, destroy the heart of the resistance. The Alliance mobilized immediately. Every species sent ships. The fleet that gathered to defend Earth was the largest military force in galactic history. 200 ships from 47 different civilizations, all flying under the unified Alliance banner. The Indomitable took its place at the center of the formation. On the bridge, Captain Hana checked her systems one final time. Everything was ready. The crew was trained. The weapons were armed, but she still felt nervous. "Big day," Lieutenant Sung-ho said from his navigation station. "The biggest," Hana agreed. "Make sure our jump calculations are perfect. We jump together, we fight together. Calculations confirmed, Captain. We'll arrive exactly where we need to be." Admiral Tae-sung's voice came through on the command frequency, broadcasting to the entire fleet. He stood in the Alliance Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing every ship, every captain, every crew member who had volunteered to defend Earth. "I know many of you are nervous," Tae-sung began. "I'm nervous too. The enemy is stronger than before. They've learned from their defeats. They're coming for us with everything they have. But I want to remind you all of something important." He paused, looking at the faces on his displays. Human faces, alien faces, all looking to him for leadership. 3 months ago, most of you were strangers to each other. Different species, different worlds, different ways of thinking. The Voidborn thought that made us weak. They thought we would never truly work together. They were wrong. His voice grew stronger. Today we don't fight as humans or Arathians or Cynthians. We fight as allies. We fight as friends. We fight as one galaxy united against an enemy that would destroy us all. And we're going to show them something they still don't understand. "What's that, sir?" someone asked. "That flesh and blood will always beat cold metal. That life will always find a way. That we don't have to be perfect to win. We just have to be stubborn enough never to quit." Across the fleet, crew members straightened at their stations. Pilots gripped their controls tighter. Captains looked at their crews with pride. "The Voidborn are machines," Tae-sung continued. "They calculate probabilities. They run simulations. And every simulation probably tells them they're going to win today. But simulations don't account for one thing. They don't account for beings who refuse to accept defeat even when logic says they should." He smiled slightly. 3 months ago, the galaxy laughed at a primitive carrier. Today, that carrier leads the greatest fleet ever assembled. That should tell you something about what's possible when we work together. So let's go defend Earth. Let's show the Voidborn that this galaxy belongs to us. All ships prepare for jump. On the Indomitable, Commander Bora sat in her fighter, ready for launch. Her squadron included pilots from 6 different species. They had trained together, fought together, and now they would defend Earth together. "All wings, this is Bora. Remember your training. Watch each other's backs. And show them why nobody messes with this galaxy." Engineer Jiwoo checked his systems one final time. Everything was ready. Every backup system was online. Every redundancy was tested. The Indomitable could take incredible damage and keep fighting, just like it was designed to do. Dr. Minseo stood in her medical bay, surrounded by her multi-species team. "We're ready," she said quietly. "Whatever comes, we'll handle it." The countdown began. 10 seconds to jump. The largest fleet in history prepared to defend the birthplace of the species that had changed everything. "All ships," Tae-sung commanded. "Jump to Earth, let's go home," space folded. 200 ships jumped simultaneously, appearing in orbit around the blue-green planet that had given birth to humanity. Below them, Earth continued its peaceful rotation, unaware of the battle about to begin above it. And in the distance, the Voidborn fleet was already approaching. Captain Hana looked at her bridge crew. They were ready. "Stations ready," she reported. "All weapons armed. Fighters prepared to launch. We're not going to let them touch our world." Tae-sung's voice came through one final time, calm and steady. "This is where humanity started. This is where we learned to dream of the stars. This is where we proved that primitive doesn't mean weak. This is home. And we're going to defend it." The Voidborn fleet emerged from FTL. Hundreds of ships bearing down on Earth with mechanical precision and cold determination. The Allied fleet moved forward to meet them, a wall of different ships and different species, all fighting for the same cause. And at the center of that fleet, the Indomitable surged forward, its engines burning bright, its weapons ready, its crew determined. They had been laughed at once, mocked for being primitive, dismissed as irrelevant. Now they led the galaxy's defense, now they were legends, and the battle for Earth had begun. The Hydra Nebula was beautiful in a deadly way. Clouds of purple and blue gas stretched across millions of kilometers, hiding asteroids and radiation pockets that could tear apart unwary ships. It was the perfect place for an ambush, which was exactly why Admiral Tae-sung had chosen it. The combined fleet gathered at the nebula's edge. 87 ships from 30 different civilizations, the largest allied force the galaxy had seen in centuries. At the center flew the Indomitable, no longer mocked, now respected as the flagship of a united defense. Enemy contact, Lieutenant Sung-ho called out, sensors detecting multiple FTL signatures. They're arriving now. Space tour open in 150 places simultaneously. The Voidborn fleet emerged in perfect formation, black ships against the colorful nebula, looking like darkness itself coming to swallow the light. Captain Hana stared at the tactical display and felt her stomach tighten. They're not spreading out. They're staying in tight formation. That's new. They learned from last time, Tae-sung observed. They know our fighters are dangerous in chaos, so they're maintaining order, supporting each other. The Voidborn fleet moved forward like a single living organism. Every ship knew exactly where every other ship was. Their shields overlapped, creating layers of defense. Their weapons synchronized, ready to concentrate fire on single targets. All ships, this is Admiral Tae-sung. He broadcast to the entire Allied fleet. Remember what we've practiced. Fight like humans, not like machines. Be aggressive. Be unpredictable. And above all, protect each other. Today we show the Voidborn that this galaxy belongs to the living, not to them. The Voidborn opened fire first. A wall of plasma energy crossed the space between fleets. Hundreds of beams all fired in perfect synchronization. It was beautiful and terrifying. The Allied fleet scattered. Not in panic, but in controlled chaos. Orathian ships abandoned their usual elegant formations for aggressive attack patterns. Cynthian vessels shut down their predictive computers and let their commanders make instant decisions based on gut feeling. Luminary cruisers fired their energy weapons in short. Random bursts instead of sustained calculated strikes. They were all fighting like humans now. Unpredictable. Aggressive. Refusing to do what the enemy expected. The Indomitable took hits immediately. The Voidborn had clearly marked it as priority target. Dozens of plasma beams converged on the carrier from multiple angles. Armor plating exploded outward. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. But before the Voidborn could press their advantage, 3 Orathian destroyers swept in front of the carrier, taking hits that were meant for the Indomitable. One destroyer's shields collapsed completely. Another lost weapons power. Why are they protecting us? Sung-ho asked in surprise. Because we taught them to, Hana replied. We taught them that protecting allies is more important than personal glory. Commander Bora launched her fighter wing into the chaos. 300 human fighters plus 200 alien craft that had trained in human tactics. They didn't attack in organized waves. Instead, they swarmed like angry insects, each pilot making their own decisions following their instincts. All fighters, weapons free, Bora called out. Hunt in pairs. Watch each other's backs. Make them regret coming here. A Voidborn cruiser locked onto Bora's fighter. She saw the targeting solution form. Saw the plasma weapon charging. Then a Luminari fighter appeared from nowhere and fired an energy burst that disrupted the Voidborn's targeting system. The Luminari pilot's voice came through. I have your back, human. And I've got yours, Bora replied, immediately swooping around to protect her new wingmate from another Voidborn attack. The battle became a swirling chaos of fire and steel. Ships exploded. Fighters died. The Allied fleet was taking terrible losses, but they were giving as good as they got. Voidborn ships, confused by the unpredictable tactics, began making mistakes. Then the Voidborn adapted again. Their AI analyzed the new tactics and found the pattern. The allies were protecting each other. So the Voidborn began targeting damaged ships, forcing others to choose between pressing their attack or protecting wounded vessels. It was a brutal strategy, and it worked. 3 Cynthian ships moved to protect a damaged cruiser, and were destroyed in the process. A cluster of Praxis fighters died shielding a crippled carrier. On the Indomitable's bridge, Admiral Tae-sung watched the casualties mount. They were holding, but barely. The Voidborn had more ships and were learning faster than he'd hoped. We need to change the equation, he said quietly. Hana, can we identify their command ship? Working on it, sir. She studied the sensor data, looking for patterns. There. See how the Voidborn fleet movements are perfectly synchronized? They're receiving orders from a central point. If I trace the communication patterns. She highlighted a ship deep in the nebula, hidden behind the main fleet. That vessel is transmitting coordination signals to every other void-born ship. If we destroy it, Tai-Sung asked, their fleet coordination collapses. Each ship fights independently. Lieutenant Sung-Ho looked up. Admiral, that ship is surrounded by 20 void-born guardians. We'd never get close enough. Captain J1 might, Tai-Sung said. He opened a secure channel. Whisper, this is Indomitable. We have a special mission for you. In the stealth ship Whisper, Captain J1 studied the tactical data that Tai-Sung sent. The mission was nearly impossible. Penetrate deep into enemy territory, get past 20 Guardian ships, and destroy a heavily protected command vessel. Understood, Admiral, J1 replied calmly. We'll get it done. He turned to his crew. You heard the man. Plot a course through the nebula, use the gas clouds for cover, and someone start calculating the reactor overload procedure. Sir? His engineer asked nervously. Reactor overload? If we're going to take out that command ship, we'll need more than our weapons can provide. We're going to ram it. That's suicide. That's why we'll evacuate in escape pods at the last second. Now move. The Whisper, along with 2 Cynthian scout ships, slipped into the Hydra Nebula. They moved slowly, carefully using the radiation and gas clouds to hide their sensor signatures. The Voidborn Guardians didn't see them coming. Meanwhile, the main battle raged on. The Indomitable's armor was failing. Multiple hull breaches vented atmosphere into space. Dr. Minseo worked in medical bays that overflowed with wounded. Human and alien blood mixed on the floors as medical teams fought to save as many lives as possible. Engineer Jiwoo coordinated damage control across the entire Allied fleet. Our Arathian destroyer, this is Indomitable engineering. Reroute power through your secondary conduits. Yes, I know it's not optimal, but it will work. Trust me. The Arathian engineer hesitated, then did as Jiwoo suggested. Their weapons came back online. It works. How did you know? Because every system can be jury-rigged if you're desperate enough, Jiwoo replied with a tired grin. Deep in the nebula, the Whisper approached the Voidborn command ship. Alarms screamed as the Guardians finally detected them. Plasma fire filled space. All crew to escape pods, J1 ordered calmly. We have 30 seconds before intercept. His crew abandoned ship, launching in small pods that scattered in all directions. Most would be picked up by Allied ships later. Some wouldn't make it. That was the cost. J1 stayed at the helm, guiding his ship on its final course. The Voidborn command vessel grew larger in his viewport, its weapons turning toward him. Too late. This is for everyone who died today, J1 whispered. Then he overloaded the reactor and ejected in the last escape pod. The Whisper struck the Voidborn command ship at full speed. The reactor detonated a split second later. The explosion tore through the nebula, a brief star being born and dying in the same moment. On the Indomitable's bridge, every display suddenly showed the same thing. The Voidborn fleet coordination collapsed. Ships that had moved as one organism now operated independently. They began making mistakes, firing at the wrong targets, moving out of formation. All ships full offensive, Taesung commanded. Show them what we can do. The Allied fleet surged forward. Commander Bora led a massive fighter strike that overwhelmed a Voidborn battleship. Orathian destroyers pressed attacks they would have considered too risky minutes before. Cynthian cruisers fired with abandon, trusting their instincts over their computers. The Voidborn fleet, already damaged and now uncoordinated, began to collapse. Ships tried to retreat but were cut off. Others fought alone and were overwhelmed. The perfect machine intelligence, robbed of its central coordination, revealed itself to be vulnerable after all. After 3 more hours of brutal fighting, it was over. 103 Voidborn ships escaped into FTL. 47 were destroyed. The Allied fleet was devastated. 39 ships destroyed, the rest battered and barely functional. But they had won. On the Indomitable's bridge, Taesung sat heavily in his command chair. His crew was exhausted. His ship was dying around him. But they had won. Casualty reports coming in, Hana said quietly. They're bad, sir. I know. Start rescue operations. Find J1's pod and send a message to all ships. We won today because we fought together. High Chancellor Vextril's transmission came through, his voice subdued. Admiral Taesung, the Arathian Empire salutes you. I was wrong about humans. I was wrong about many things. Forgive me. News of the Indomitable's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light travel. Within hours, every major civilization knew what had happened. A single human carrier had faced 15 void-born warships alone and won. The mockery from the council meeting suddenly seemed foolish and short-sighted. The Galactic Defense Summit reconvened 3 days later. This time, when the human delegation entered, nobody laughed. Instead, there was silence. Curious, calculating silence. Admiral Tae-sung looked different now. His uniform bore scorch marks from a fire on Deck 7 that he had helped fight personally. He walked with a slight limp from a minor injury during the battle. But his eyes were steady and clear as he took his place at the human station. Fleet Master Colvaris was the first to speak. Admiral, the Cynthian Collective formally requests permission to inspect your carrier. We wish to understand how your primitive technology achieved such results. Before Tae-sung could answer, Ambassador Dae-hyun spoke up. Permission granted, Fleet Master. We have nothing to hide. Send your engineering teams. Let them see everything. High Chancellor Vextril looked surprised. Everything? You would share your military secrets so freely? They're not secrets, Dae-hyun replied with a slight smile. They're just good engineering. Any species could build what we built. Host just chose not to. 2 days later, a team of Cynthian engineers boarded the Indomitable. They were the best the collective had, experts in ship design and weapons technology. They expected to find hidden systems, secret weapons, something that explained how this outdated vessel had performed so well. What they found confused them more than anything. Engineer Ji-woo showed them around personally, his friendly manner putting them at ease. This is our main reactor, he said, gesturing to a massive fusion core that looked simple and crude compared to Cynthian designs. It's not the most efficient design. We lose about 15% of our energy to heat waste. Then why not optimize it? One of the Cynthian engineers asked. Because optimization creates single points of failure, Ji-woo explained. This reactor is redundant. If one system fails, 6 others can compensate. It's not elegant, but it keeps working. They moved through the ship. Every system was the same. Redundancy built on top of redundancy. Manual overrides for every automated function. Multiple backup systems for critical operations. The ship could lose half its systems and still fight. Your philosophy is different, the lead Cynthian engineer observed. We design for peak efficiency. You design for survival. Exactly, Ji-woo said with pride. Our ships might not be the fastest or the most powerful, but they're stubborn. They keep fighting when other ships would be dead in space. The Cynthian team reported back to Fleet Master Colvaris. Their conclusion was simple and surprising. Human technology wasn't advanced. It was just applied differently. Where other species optimized for performance, humans optimized for resilience. Meanwhile, in a secure briefing room, Admiral Tae-sung met with his intelligence officer, Agent Yeon-woo. She was young but had a reputation for getting information nobody else could find. The Voidborn are analyzing us, Yeon-woo reported, pulling up holographic displays. Our intelligence networks detected massive data transfers from the Voidborn ships that escaped. They recorded everything about our tactics, our weapons, our strategies. So they're learning, Captain Hana said quietly. She had joined the meeting along with Commander Bora. They're machines, Yeon-woo confirmed. Learning is what they do. The next time we face them, they'll be prepared for kinetic weapons. They'll have predictive algorithms for our fighter tactics. They'll know how to counter our defensive strategies. Tae-sung frowned. How long do we have? Unknown, sir. But I recommend we assume they'll adapt quickly. Weeks, maybe less, the Admiral nodded slowly. Then we need to stay unpredictable. Bora, work on new fighter tactics. Hana, I want alternative weapons configurations. Ji-woo, can we modify our systems further? Always, the engineer replied through the communication system. I'll start immediately. That afternoon, Professor Kyung-soo addressed the full Galactic Defense Summit. He was a strange man, brilliant but eccentric, with wild gray hair and clothes that never quite matched. But when he spoke about the Voidborn, everyone listened. The question everyone asks is why human weapons work so well, he began, pacing in front of the assembled delegates. The answer is simple. The Voidborn are ancient. They were designed 10,000 years ago to fight civilizations that used energy weapons, plasma shields, and highly optimized systems. He pulled up data charts. When the Voidborn encounter energy weapons, their shields adapt in milliseconds. When they face plasma fire, their armor redistributes thermal energy. When they fight optimized systems, they hack or disrupt them. They're designed to counter advanced technology. But kinetic weapons? Kyung-soo smiled widely. Solid metal slugs fired by chemical reactions? That's not advanced technology. That's ancient technology. The void-born algorithms barely recognize it as a threat until it's already punched through their hull. Emissary Threnal spoke up, their glowing form pulsing with interest. So humanity's advantage is that you still use outdated weapons? Our advantage, Kyung-soo corrected gently, is that we never fully abandoned the old ways. We built on them, improved them, but kept them. Most species throw away old technology when they develop new technology. Humans just add the new stuff to the old stuff. The council chamber buzzed with conversation. Some delegates seemed to understand. Others looked skeptical. High Chancellor Vextrill stood. Professor, your theory is interesting. But the Voidborn will adapt. What happens when they learn to counter human tactics? Then we adapt again, Kyung-soo said simply. That's what humans do best. We improvise. The next week something unexpected happened. Smaller civilizations began requesting tactical training from human officers. The Praxis Combine wanted to learn about redundant systems. The Helian Republic asked for lessons in kinetic weapon usage. Even the proud Orathians quietly requested information about human damage control procedures. Captain Hana found herself teaching alien officers on the bridge of the Indomitable. The key is not to rely on automation completely, she explained to a group of Luminari commanders. Automation is wonderful until it breaks. Then you need crew who can think, adapt, and solve problems manually. Commander Bora established an informal fighter pilot academy. She trained alien pilots in close-range combat tactics, teaching them to trust their instincts instead of just their sensors. Machines calculate, she told them. Pilots feel. Learn to feel the fight, not just analyze it. Dr. Minseo worked with alien medical staff, sharing human triage techniques and emergency procedures. In battle, you won't have time for perfect treatment, she explained. You need to save the most lives with the resources you have. That means making hard choices quickly. The galaxy was learning from humanity, but humanity was also learning from the galaxy. Human engineers studied luminary energy systems. Human scientists examined Cynthian self-repair technology. It was an exchange of knowledge that benefited everyone. Then Captain Jae-won returned from a deep reconnaissance mission. His stealth ship, the Whisper, had been monitoring Voidborn movements for 2 weeks. What he found made everyone stop and listen. They're building a fleet, Jae-won reported to the council. His face was grim on the holographic display. Not 15 ships. Not 50. 150 Voidborn warships all gathering in the void expanse. And according to my analysis, they're specifically designed to counter human tactics. The council chamber erupted in worried conversation. Ambassador Daehyun raised his hand for silence. Captain Jae-won, what is their target? Unknown, sir. But based on their formation and supplies, they're preparing for a major assault. And based on intercepted transmissions, we believe they're coming for the Indomitable specifically. They want to eliminate what they call the anomaly in their calculations. They're coming for us, Taesung said quietly. Because we proved they could be beaten. Emissary Threnal stood, their ancient voice carrying across the chamber. Then humanity shall not face them alone. The Luminary Council pledges our forces to stand with Earth. There was a moment of silence. Then one by one other species stood. The Orathian Empire will fight beside you, Vextrill announced, his pride clearly struggling with this admission but his honor winning out. The Cynthian Collective stands with humanity, Colvarus declared. The Praxis Combine joins this alliance. The Helian Republic pledges our fleet. Within an hour, 30 different civilizations had committed their forces to a combined defense, not because they owed humanity anything, but because the Indomitable had shown them something important. It had shown them that different approaches to warfare had value. It had reminded them that the galaxy was stronger together. Ambassador Daehyun stood and bowed deeply to the assembled delegates. Thank you, all of you. 3 weeks ago you laughed at our carrier. Today you stand beside it. That means more than you know. Admiral Taesung returned to the Indomitable and called his senior staff together. We have allies now, he told them. The galaxy is standing with us. But make no mistake, this next fight will be harder than anything we've faced. The bridge of the Indomitable hummed with activity. Crew members rushed to their stations while klaxons blared warning signals. Admiral Taesung stepped onto the command deck and immediately felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle onto his shoulders. Status report, he ordered. Captain Hana looked up from her console. All stations ready for combat jump, Admiral. Engineering reports fusion reactors at full power. Fighter wings are prepped and ready to launch. Weapon systems are armed and tracking solutions are prepared. Navigation? Taesung asked. Lieutenant Sung-ho, young but brilliant with numbers, nodded quickly. Jump coordinates confirmed, sir. Arrival point will be 3,000 kilometers from the colony. Clear of major gravitational interference. Margin of error is within acceptable parameters. Acceptable by whose standards? Hana asked with a slight smile. Ours, ma'am, Sung-ho replied, which means we will arrive exactly where we need to be. Taesung allowed himself a brief moment of pride. These were his people, trained and ready. All hands, this is the Admiral. We jump in 30 seconds. We're going to arrive in the middle of a combat zone, with no support and no backup. The enemy expects nothing and the galaxy expects us to fail. Let's prove them both wrong. Jump in 10 seconds. The countdown appeared on every screen. The crew gripped their stations. The ship's massive engines built up power until the entire carrier vibrated with contained energy. Jump, Taesung said calmly. Space folded, twisted, and snapped. The Indomitable vanished from near Velthar Prime and reappeared exactly where Sung-ho had calculated. 3,000 kilometers from the burning mining colony in the Kepler expanse. On every sensor screen, the situation was clear and terrible. The colony was a civilian station, home to 15,000 miners and their families. It had minimal defenses, just enough to ward off pirates, nothing that could stop a military assault. And attacking it were 15 Voidborn warships. The Voidborn ships were beautiful in a cold, mechanical way. Sleek black hulls that seemed to absorb light, weapons that glowed with blue plasma energy, shields that shimmered like oil on water. They were efficient killing machines, built by an ancient artificial intelligence that had destroyed 100 civilizations. When the Indomitable appeared, every Voidborn ship immediately changed targets. The colony was forgotten. 15 warships turned as one to face the human carrier. They're scanning us, Hana reported. All 15 ships have weapons lock. They're preparing to fire. Let them, Taesung said. Launch all fighters. Commander Bora, you're clear for deployment. Deep in the carrier's launch bays, Commander Bora sat in her fighter cockpit and grinned fiercely. You heard the Admiral. All wings, launch, launch, launch. What happened next made the Voidborn calculations pause for a fraction of a second, which for an AI was an eternity of confusion. The Indomitable's hull opened in hundreds of places. Fighters poured out like angry insects from a disturbed hive. 100, 200, 300 fighters launched in under 2 minutes. Far more than should fit inside the carrier's visible size. How? Lieutenant Sung-ho whispered, watching the Voidborn ships. How are they reacting? They're machines, Hana explained. They calculate based on data. Their data says that ship our size should carry maybe 50 fighters. We just launched 300. They don't understand, so they're recalculating. The Voidborn opened fire. 15 ships unleashed plasma weapons designed to cut through energy shields and vaporize armor. Bright blue beams crossed the distance in seconds and struck the Indomitable's hull, and something unexpected happened. The armor didn't vaporize. The thick, primitive-looking metal plating absorbed the first impact, then exploded outward in controlled bursts. Underneath was another layer, then another. The reactive composite armor dispersed the plasma energy across hundreds of square meters, instead of letting it penetrate in one spot. Armor holding, the damage control officer reported. Reactive plating working as designed. We can take this fire for a while. Good, Taesung said, because we're about to get a lot closer. Helm, take us in. Full speed toward the enemy fleet, sir. The helmsman looked uncertain. You heard me. Direct approach. Show them what we're made of. The Indomitable's massive engines roared. The carrier accelerated directly toward 15 enemy warships, something no sane captain would ever do. Capital ships were supposed to stay at range and trade fire with other capital ships. They weren't supposed to charge like ancient cavalry, but humans had never cared much about what they were supposed to do. Commander Bora's fighter wing reached the Voidborn first. Her voice came across the command channel, excited and fierce. All wings attack pattern Omega. Get in close and stay there. The human fighters didn't fire from long range. Instead, they accelerated to maximum speed and dove straight into the Voidborn formation. The enemy ships tried to target them, but the fighters were too small and too fast, and they were doing something the Voidborn had never encountered before. They were fighting at knife range. Human fighters zipped between void-borne warships at distances measured in hundreds of meters, not thousands. They fired railguns that punched through shields designed to stop energy weapons. They launched missiles with chemical rockets that the void-borne sensors barely recognized as threats until they exploded. They acted on instinct and training, making split-second decisions that no AI could predict. Void-borne shields are failing, Hana reported with satisfaction. Their defensive programming isn't designed for kinetic weapons at close range. And their offensive programming isn't designed for targets that think instead of calculate, Tae-sung added. Keep the pressure on. The Indomitable entered weapons range and opened fire with its main batteries. Kinetic weapons, giant railguns that fired solid metal slugs at a significant fraction of light speed. The Galaxy considered such weapons primitive, outdated museum pieces. The void-borne shields, optimized for energy weapons, were almost useless against them. A solid slug of depleted uranium traveling at 30,000 kilometers per second hit a void-borne warship dead center. The shield slowed it slightly, but not enough. The slug punched completely through the ship and out the other side. The warship exploded 3 seconds later. Target destroyed, the weapons officer called out. Tracking second target. Around the carrier, the fighter wings were doing terrible damage. Commander Bora led a strike directly at a void-borne cruiser's engine section. 20 fighters followed her in, dodging plasma fire, losing 2 ships but staying on target. They released their missiles simultaneously. The void-borne cruiser's engines erupted in fire. It began to spin helplessly, its AI unable to compensate for the damage. That's 2 down. Bora's voice came through, breathing hard. 13 to go, but the void-borne were learning. That was what made them so dangerous. Their central AI analyzed every human tactic and began adapting. Their plasma weapons adjusted frequency to better damage the reactive armor. Their targeting systems started predicting human fighter movements. They began coordinating their fire to concentrate on single targets. 3 human fighters exploded in rapid succession. The Indomitable took a hit that penetrated the outer armor and damaged a secondary power system. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Hull breach Deck 7, damage control reported. Ceiling affected sections. Casualties unknown. Dr. Min Seo's voice came through from medical. I have wounded coming in. All medical teams respond. Can we maintain fire? Tae-sung asked. Engineer Jiwoo's voice answered from deep in the ship's guts. Yes, sir. Main systems are solid. We designed for this. Every critical system has backups, and every backup has backups. Then we keep fighting, Tae-sung said firmly. Helm, position us between the colony and the enemy fleet. Admiral, that will expose us to concentrated fire, Hana warned. I know. Do it anyway. The Indomitable moved to shield the colony, taking hits meant for the civilian station. More armor plates exploded outward. More systems went offline. But the carrier held, stubborn and tough, refusing to break. Tae-sung opened a channel on all frequencies, including those monitored by the approaching alien relief fleets. This is Admiral Tae-sung of Earth's 3rd Colonial Navy. To the Voidborn attacking this colony, I have a message. If you want these people, you're going to have to go through us first. And I promise you, we don't break easy. The battle raged for another 20 minutes. 8 Voidborn ships were destroyed or disabled. The human carrier was battered but operational. Dozens of fighters were lost, brave pilots who bought time with their lives. Then suddenly the Voidborn stopped firing. Their AI ran calculations and reached a conclusion. This fight was costing more resources than the mining colony was worth. The human vessel was not worth the expenditure of forces. The remaining 7 Voidborn ships turned and jumped away into deep space. Silence fell across the Indomitable's bridge. Then someone started cheering. Within seconds, the entire crew was shouting and celebrating. Damage report, Tae-sung said, bringing them back to order. Hana read from her console. Heavy damage to outer hull sections. 20% of armor plating destroyed or compromised. 3 weapon batteries offline. 47 fighters lost. Casualty count is still coming in, but we have wounded on multiple decks. And the colony? The Great Council chamber floated in orbit above Velthar Prime, a massive station where the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered. Today was supposed to be important. The Voidborn were coming, ancient machines that destroyed everything in their path, and every species needed to show what forces they could bring to fight. Admiral Tae-sung stood quietly in the human section of the chamber. his gray uniform simple compared to the glowing robes and crystalline armor worn by the other species. Next to him, Ambassador Dae-hyun watched the holographic displays with calm eyes. Behind them, Captain Hana reviewed tactical data on her tablet, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. The chamber was enormous, filled with representatives from 47 different civilizations. Some looked like insects, others like living light, and some were so strange that humans still didn't understand how they lived. But they all had one thing in common today. They were all showing off. High Chancellor Vextril of the Arathian Empire went first. His forearms spread wide as his fleet appeared in the hologram above the chamber. Sleek warships with energy shields that rippled like water. Weapons that could tear apart asteroids and engines that bent space itself. The crowd made impressed sounds. Fleetmaster Colvaris showed his Cynthian collective next. Their ships were almost alive, covered in what looked like metal skin that could heal itself. Plasma cannons lined every surface. Some ships were so advanced, they didn't even have crews, just artificial minds controlling everything. One by one, each species displayed their military might. The Luminari showed vessels made of pure crystallized energy. The Kresh displayed bioships grown from living tissue. The Thandorians revealed automated defense platforms that could destroy entire fleets. Then it was humanity's turn. The hologram changed and there was a moment of silence. Then someone laughed, then another. Soon the entire chamber was filled with barely hidden amusement. The human fleet appeared primitive by every standard the galaxy used. The centerpiece was the TCNS Indomitable, a massive supercarrier that looked like it had been built in a factory, not grown or energy formed. Thick armor plating covered the hull in overlapping sheets of metal. Gun turrets stuck out at odd angles. The engines were huge and bulky, burning with what looked like simple fusion reactions. There were no visible energy shields, no plasma weapons, no adaptive hull plating. It looked like something from humanity's early space age, not something meant to fight an ancient machine empire. "Are those chemical rockets?" Someone whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Do they still use kinetic weapons?" Another voice asked, dripping with disbelief. High Chancellor Vextril didn't even try to hide his smile. "Honored humans," he said, his voice smooth and condescending. "Perhaps you misunderstood the assignment. We asked for your military forces, not your museum pieces." More laughter echoed through the chamber. Fleetmaster Colvaris leaned forward, his mechanical eyes focusing on the human delegation. "With respect, Ambassador Dae-hyun, your species is barely 300 years into space travel. Perhaps you should leave the actual fighting to those of us who have been defending the galaxy for millennia." Ambassador Dae-hyun didn't flinch. His face remained calm, almost peaceful. "We build what works," he said simply. "You will see. This only made things worse." The laughter grew louder. A delegate from the Praxis Combine actually slapped their appendage on their console in amusement. "Build what works," they repeated. "Those weapons are 10,000 years outdated." Only one being seemed thoughtful. Emissary Threnol of the Luminary Council, an ancient being who had seen civilizations rise and fall, tilted their glowing head. "Curious," they murmured. "Very curious design philosophy. There is something here I do not understand." But no one was listening to Threnol. The mockery continued. Some delegates started taking bets on how long the human carrier would last in actual combat. Others suggested humanity should stay behind and guard supply lines instead of fighting. Captain Hana's jaw tightened. Her hand moved toward her communicator, but Admiral Taesung touched her shoulder gently. "Let them laugh," he said quietly. "We've heard worse." The council meeting continued with discussions about strategy and fleet positions. The humans were largely ignored. When deployment zones were assigned, humanity got the quietest sector, the one where nothing was expected to happen. It was clear what everyone thought. The humans were being kept out of the way so the real militaries could do the actual fighting. Then everything changed. Alarms screamed through the council chamber. Red lights flashed across every display. A communications officer's voice cut through the noise, high-pitched with panic. Voidborn attack. Kepler expanse. Mining colony with 15,000 inhabitants under assault. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted at each other. Fleet commanders barked orders to their ships. Holographic displays showed the attack. Dozens of sleek black Voidborn warships pouring destruction onto a defenseless mining station. High Chancellor Vextrill stood tall. My fleet will respond. We can be there in 4 hours. The Cynthian Collective will arrive in 3 hours and 40 minutes, Colvaris announced. Other species called out their response times. 3 hours, 2 hours and 50 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes at the absolute fastest, pushing their engines beyond safe limits. Ambassador Dae-hyun looked at his tablet, then at Admiral Tae-sung. They had a silent conversation with just their eyes. Tae-sung nodded once. The Indomitable can be there in 43 minutes, Dae-hyun said. The chamber went silent. Everyone turned to look at the human delegation. Impossible, Vextrill said flatly. No ship can jump that accurately. The gravitational calculations alone would take hours. You would arrive inside an asteroid or tear your ship apart in the jump. We've done it before, Tae-sung said simply. Fleet Master Colvaris made a sound that might have been laughter or disgust. You would send that antique, alone, against 15 Voidborn warships? They will destroy you in minutes. Maybe, Tae-sung admitted, but those are 15,000 people who don't have hours to wait. They have minutes, we're going. This is suicide, another delegate protested. And pointless suicide at that. Better to let the colony fall and save your ship for a battle you can actually win. Admiral Tae-sung turned to face the entire council. His voice was quiet but carried through the chamber. If we waited for perfect conditions, humanity would never have left Earth. If we only fought battles we knew we could win, we would never have survived. Those people need help now, and we're close enough to give it. So we're going. He tapped his communicator. Admiral Tae-sung to Indomitable. Captain Hana, prepare for immediate combat jump. Plot course to Kepler Expanse mining colony beacon. Through the communicator, Captain Hana's voice came back steady and confident. Coordinates locked. All hands to battle stations. Should we wait for reinforcements, sir? Tae-sung allowed himself a small, grim smile. We've been underestimated before, Captain. Let's remind the galaxy why that's always a mistake. Jump on my command. The human delegation stood and walked toward the exit. The other delegates watched them go, some with pity, others with amusement, a few with confusion. As they left, Ambassador Dae-hyun heard someone whisper, "Brave but stupid. They will be destroyed and we will still arrive too late to save the colony." Emissary Threnel said nothing, but their glowing form pulsed with an emotion no one else could read. Anticipation, perhaps, or recognition. In the hangar, Tae-sung boarded his shuttle to return to the Indomitable. Through the viewport, he could see his carrier in the distance, its primitive bulk seeming small compared to the sleek alien vessels around it. "They think we're going to die," Captain Hana said as she took her seat. "They think we're idiots flying a museum piece," Tae-sung replied. "Let's show them what humans do best." "What's that, sir?" "Survive, and win doing it." The shuttle accelerated toward the carrier. Behind them, the galaxy's finest military minds were already discussing how to respond when the human ship inevitably fell. None of them considered the possibility that they might be wrong. That was their first mistake.